Calling to order the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Raritan Township, New Jersey, regular meeting, February 20th, 2025. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied by the placing of a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board at the municipal building, filing same with the township clerk, and transmitting same with the Hunter County Democrat, the Courier News, Star Ledger, and the Trenton Times. Roll call, please. Where'd you go?
Chairwoman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Here.
Vice Chair, Ms. Russell Adamji.
Here.
Mr. Randy Block. Here. Mr. Steve Farcio.
Here.
Mr. Jim Ferrero. Jim?
Hey, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted. I don't know why you can't hear me.
Well, we hear you now.
Hear you now.
Okay.
Sound like Lou Gehrig at Yankee
Okay,
Stadium.
we're good. We're good.
Ms. Lindsay Cool-Brungal, she is asked to be excused. Ms. Lorette Cortina. Ms. Donna Drews. Here. Mr. James Miller.
Here.
Want
Oh,
to
I'm
call
sorry,
anyone
board
else?
professionals. I can't. Board professionals, Board Attorney, Mr. John Drill.
Here.
Township Planner, Mr. Jeffrey Vaccarella. On behalf of Board Engineer, Mr. Rakesh Darshi, we have Mr. Ryan McCarthy.
Here.
Township Landscape Architect, Mr. John Morgan Thomas.
Here.
And all other board professionals have asked to be excused. Board Secretary Taylor Vaughn here.
Okay, can I get a motion to excuse Lindsay?
Motion.
Roll call, please.
Chairwoman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Russell Adamji.
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block.
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Yes.
Ms. Lorette Cortina. Ms. Donna Drews. Yes.
Okay, moving on to comments, announcements, distribution, correspondence, and meeting minutes. Having none. Moving to the first application for this evening, BOA case number 2012-2020. Applicant is the Fudge Shop Land Group LLC, location block 36, lot 65, 10 Millbrook Place. Application for a minor site plan with D variance relief for manufacturing use and residential use in a B3 zone. And it's going to be rescheduled?
Oh, did I put a copy of his letter with you?
Hold on. Give me a second. Got it. Okay, letter from Scott Bullock. Dear Ms. Vaughn, applicant, the Fudge Shop grants a time extension for the board to act on this application to the end of July 2025. I will get back to you on proposed meeting dates. The engineer is still revising the site plan. Thank you.
Okay, can someone just remind everybody
So,
what they're revising, where we are on that?
They have to revise and also they have to do a submission for the front building, the existing building.
so right now, I'm not exactly sure why he wrote his letter the way he did, but right now they're penciled in for April 17th. But that's still subject to if they make it with that new submission within the 21 days, because we're not going to waive that rule. Well, you guys decide that you're not going to waive the 21-day rule.
Yeah, I would
And-
suggest that in this case, you do not waive the 21-day rule. It's not simply, a couple revisions. This is something the board wanted to see and wants the board experts to have, plenty sufficient time to get the reports.
I think we already told them that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
And Jay needs to do a
our
report.
traffic
Yeah.
expert, yeah.
Traffic expert Jay Troutman needs to do a report.
All right, so they're on for the 17th?
They're penciled in, but they're still going to have to notice no matter what date they get.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on to the second application for this evening, BOA case number 10-2021, ESCO Precision Inc., location block 36.02, lots 14, 15, and 16, 7, 11, and 17 Royal Road, application time extension request for obtaining zoning and construction permits.
Can you come on up to the microphone? Can you identify yourself for the record?
Amir El Khoury,
And can you spell your first name?
Emir.
Okay, and raise your right hand. You swear that the testimony you'll be giving in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay, so you have a letter, it's undated, but the board secretary says it was submitted on January 15th, and it's requesting an extension of the deadline for the following regarding the site plan application for 11 Royal Road. Condition 15 and resolution 22-08 for obtaining zoning and construction permits. And you want that extended for a 6-month extension. So just for purposes of the record here, the board has already granted 2 prior extensions. The last extension, which was the second extension, was memorialized in resolution 2024-13. And that revised conditions 1 and 15, correct, Jeff? So right now, I know that he is saying that he wants an extension of condition 15. Do they need also an extension of condition 1, or is it just 15? Condition 1 is that the applicant shall revise the site plan and other documents by September 5, 2024. Was that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so condition 15 is the time to obtain construction permits, commence and complete construction and obtain a CO. And that was supposed to be by November 18, 2024. When do you want that extended until?
So, let's see here.
I know you asked for 6 months, but what's the date you want
Yeah,
to
I'm
extend
trying
it
to
to?
think. So, let's see, precast is gonna be April-ish. And then steel, you're in April. So you'll have a shell by May.
Okay.
We're in February now. It's 3 months. Yeah, so I would say 6 months is probably what it's gonna be.
There's no way.
It could be plus a month.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Has construction started out there, Jeff?
No.
Okay. This condition says you're going to obtain zoning and construction permits by November 18, and then you're going to have 2 years to complete construction. So you're saying that you believe you can commence construction by when? I know you went to, when would you commence?
You should I'm not sure.
Okay.
Structure is land
What's-
development. Like land development is what like.
Okay,
next
what's the
week.
first thing you're going to do to,
Yeah, so they did like a pad, right? Like the land is done. And now they have to do like the, I
okay,
guess.
so
the
they
base-
did site work, you're saying?
Right. So
Okay,
now
but-
the actual building is just.
Right, but you didn't need a construction permit to do site work, correct?
Okay, gotcha.
Right. So when are you going to need your first construction permit? When they do what? When they
That would be the precast walls. That's what I was saying in April.
precast walls and the steel, correct?
Yeah,
So you believe that you'll have the precast walls arriving on the site in April?
ish,
Okay.
yeah,
Have they been ordered?
Yeah.
Okay, and they gave you a delivery date of April?
ish. They don't guarantee anything. If they put
I
you-
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all we could do is give a deposit and get on their schedule, but I can't guarantee to you it'll be by
Right.
April, right? No.
Put it this way, you want to come back here again?
No.
Okay. So does anyone have any suggestion? Because I can tell you that if you extend this thing to April,
Mhm.
he's going to be back here because there's no way that, that April-ish means May or June.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the whole building with like electric and whatever, you're talking like September.
You have to apply for and obtain a zoning permit and all your construction permits. Not just the first one, all of them,
Right.
meaning
Yeah.
construction, electrical, plumbing.
So if he thinks he's going to be done by September, why don't we just extend it thinking that he won't start till September? And that would be the
Put
worst
it this
case
way,
scenario. If he
If
thinks,
he had November 18, 2024,
why
why doesn't the board just give him November 18, 2025?
I agree.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and I think members of the board last time, when you weren't here, the reason they kicked it out to have you here, what has been the delay? Tell them, that they wanted to know.
I honestly don't know. We signed up with JNR for the site work and he's just been working. I don't really question him. we're not really like, heavy developers, so we kind of take them at their word, and he's been working, and I don't know.
Did he give you a timeline and he just
I-
keeps
I
delaying
thought
it?
he was within the timeline, to be honest. I'm not really like following it too closely, to be honest with you. I thought we were okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can-
Okay,
does it-
okay, if I may.
Yes,
It
you
took,
may.
it took a while because you had the zoning permit, and once you guys got the land ready for site work, we asked that you get a letter of certification from the county soil, just saying that the site is satisfactory. Unfortunately, the soil conservation, they're understaffed as well, so it took them a while to
Okay.
get that letter to us.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's a real good explanation
Yeah.
okay, thank you for that.
I kind of
You're
look at it as
hired.
all like site together.
The site nightmare.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone on the board want to make a motion to further modify condition number 15 to extend the time for them to apply for and obtain zoning and construction permits by November 18, 2025.
I'll make the motion. Can you get a roll call, please?
Cynthia, that was you and Randy.
Yes.
Chairwoman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice Chair, Mr. Russell Domji,
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block, Mr. Steve Farcio,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero,
Yes,
Jim, okay,
yes,
Ms. Lorette Katina,
Yes.
Ms. Donna Drews.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to the third case for this evening, BOA case number 20-2024. Applicant is Pioneer Developers LLC, Block 36, Lot 13, 180 Pennsylvania Avenue. Application is amended preliminary and final site plan with bulk variances. Is that the right address? Because when I Google Maps, this property does not come up as 180.
I think they put up a street sign that says Barbish, right?
It's gonna be one Barbish,
Okay,
but
okay.
I think it was 180.
180 Pennsylvania Avenue, that was the.
180 is that other site.
No,
no, so 180 is, if you look at it on the tax map, there's like there's
Okay.
a flag on the lot that goes towards Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
and so access was originally out to Pennsylvania, and then it got moved on to Royal.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Kara Kaczynski of McNally, Yaros, Kaczynski and Lime. Thank you for coming out tonight. Hopefully the weather will hold out for a little bit. And hopefully we can give you the information that you need as expedited a manner as possible so that we can continue with this application. As Madam Chair indicated, I'm here representing Pioneer Developers LLC. Property is 180 Pennsylvania Avenue, Block 36, Lot 13. It's in your I-2 zone. We're here tonight for amended preliminary and final site plan approval and bulk variances, and those are for the tree canopy removal of 84.9%, where 55 is permitted and 79.96 was previously approved by this board. For the proposed monument sign to be located 5 feet from the right-of-way of Royal Road, where 10 feet is required, and that is subject to the townships either granting a variance or the vacation. That issue is still up in the air at this point, but we'll continue to advise the board of where that stands if that ends up going anywhere at this point. But we are asking for that relief in the event that the township does make that determination to allow one of those events to occur. And also the design exception that we noted at the last meeting. This is from section 296-72, C is in cat, 2, K is in kite. For the proposed galvanized steel guardrails, your ordinance requires that they be wooden, and we're asking for that design deviation.
okay. Also, there was in the engineer's memo dated February 14, they raised a question, item 7. They say a C2 variance was granted with the initial approval to allow disturbance within 75 feet of the stream bank and to allow structures within 100 feet of the stream bank. The applicant shall provide testimony regarding whether the extended disturbance exacerbates relief if any additional relief is required.
We discussed this at the previous hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, and what was the conclusion?
It was the stream in question was a ditch stream that came through the property and it was removed in its entirety as
Okay,
part of the project.
So no
the
relief
answer
is
is no.
required.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
And we will go through the other items
Yep.
in that letter as well, but that at least takes care of that one
Yep,
piece
yep,
of
yep.
relief.
If I may, just before we go any further, just to put on the record, Mr. James Miller and Mr. Steve Barcio were not here at your first hearing, but they have listened to the recordings from the first hearing, and they are eligible to vote if a vote is taking place tonight.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To you both. We were last here on December 19th, where we presented the revised engineering site plan and our engineer's testimony in support of the revisions and the additional relief that we were asking for. The board had a number of questions, as did the board professionals, and there were some items that we indicated that we would revise on our site plan and return to this board with. And we have done that this evening, and we have our engineer here to present those revisions. And we are prepared to respond to items in 3 letters that are before this board. Mr. Dargy's letter of February 14th, our engineer. Mr. John Morgan Thomas's letter dated earlier today. And also there was one little piece of Jeff's letter, and that letter was dated December 16th. Just a couple minor items that we just want to put on the record. I think we've addressed all of them, but just to close the loop on those 3 letters. So that was December 16th. Also, as discussed at the last meeting, we submitted amended Exhibit A to the application to reflect that revised relief that I indicated in my opening. We also have information here tonight through testimony of our engineer regarding the satisfaction of the self-reporting requests to the DEP with regard to the property conditions. Our engineer will testify as to that. He'll also testify as to submission of the revised plans to the Hunterdon County Soil Erosion Sediment Control. We submitted our updated arborist report. He is here tonight to answer any questions, but we have reviewed Mr. Thomas's report. We'll be prepared to address that as well. And we have our updated plans, which were last revised February 7th. And again, Mr. Nusser is here to testify as to those revisions and answer any questions. I indicated the reports that we have since the last meeting that we're going to be ready to address. And unless anyone has any preliminary questions, I'd like to have Mr. Nusser, who was sworn in at the last meeting, remain under oath and continue to testify to the revised plans that are before.
Now, let's see, the arborist, was he here? I don't
No,
think.
he was not.
So let's get him sworn in right now so I don't forget. Can the arborist come up to the microphone, please? Can you state your name for the record?
Yeah, Todd Pearson,
Okay, how do you spell your last name?
Pearson,
Okay, and it's Todd, Todd.
POTD.
Okay, can you raise your right hand? And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, do you have any, I know the applicant attorney will qualify you, but do you have any designations, licenses, or anything?
So I'm a New Jersey state licensed tree expert.
Okay,
John, if you want, I can qualify him now, so then if any questions come up, I know sometimes as we're going through.
Not a bad idea.
questions
you know,
may
that's a
come
good
up.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't really plan, so just so the board knows, I don't plan on calling him to testify.
yeah, but
He's
just in
really
case, good
here
idea.
to answer your questions.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so you've stated your name and address, you've stated your license. Is that license in good standing?
Yes.
And it's in the state of New Jersey.
State of New Jersey.
Have you appeared before other boards in the state of New Jersey?
No,
This is your first appearance.
it's my
before
first
a board.
one.
Have you testified as an expert in other circumstances with regard to your license?
So I've written reports as an expert, but I've never actually stood in front of a board or a court. to-
Well, they're going to be your first.
Yeah.
You understand what it means to be under oath,
Yes,
and you've written the report that has been presented to this board tonight.
yes,
And you agree to testify truthfully with regard to each item in that report and your analysis that led to the writing of that report.
I do.
Okay, what do you have to do to become a New Jersey licensed tree expert?
So it's, I don't remember the exact timeline, but I think you have to be a practicing arborist for 4 or 5 years, or a bachelor's degree in a comparable field, and then additional, experience.
Do you have to take a test?
It's a test, yeah, very comprehensive test. It's a, sorry.
Do you mind just speaking a bit closer to the microphone?
Sorry. So it is a comprehensive test. I think it consists of, it's a 4-hour book test and then a 4-hour field exam.
Okay, and what does an arborist do? What's the typical things you do?
A lot of things an arborist could do. It's essentially, it's the care of trees, care of plants. So it's, I own a company, and then I also do some, I guess, like consulting as well.
Okay, and
So
did you graduate from a college?
I don't have to graduate a degree now.
Okay, not a graduate. Do you have any college degree?
Yeah, I have some,
Okay, what was your major? What did you?
business management.
Okay, and your degree's in a business, Bachelor of,
No, it was associates of business.
okay, you have an associate's degree in business.
Almost.
Okay.
I never completed.
You never completed. So how did you end up in the arborist field?
It's just something I started doing as a job out of high school. And I've been doing it for, 38 years?
Okay. Steve, you have any questions on his qualifications as an arborist?
Well, yeah, some good ones. I see, you don't have a degree and there wasn't a certain class that you would have taken because you took business classes as an associate degree, correct? And you've been working in the field since you were 18?
17, actually.
You're 17? Okay. And you said you have provided reports before?
Yes.
Where have you provided reports?
Just to various, I guess in cases with lawyers, I've just never been called to court.
Were they for litigation, like lawsuits?
Yeah, litigation. Usually, or most of them have been either trees taken down, by neighbors that didn't own, didn't belong to them. Some of them were trees that had fallen onto neighboring properties that done some structural damage.
All right, but what would have been was there a technical issue that you did a report on, or what was the report based on, or what were these reports based on?
I guess most of the time, my reports would be kind of reporting the state of the tree, the health of the tree. Was it obvious that the tree was going to fall? Was it a danger to begin with? I also do a lot of hazard tree evaluations.
Okay. I mean, I personally think,
Not yet. Let's ask him some more questions.
okay.
Is there a state arborist association or something like that?
There's, a couple.
Okay, what state associations are there, and do you belong to any of them?
So I'm the president-elect of the New Jersey chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture. There's the New Jersey Shade Tree Federation. There is a board that oversees our license, the Board of Licensed Tree Experts.
Okay, so you said you're president of the New Jersey chapter of what?
International Society of Arboriculture.
Okay, and what did you have to do to qualify to get into that organization, let alone be president of the New Jersey chapter?
That's a volunteer organization. You really just have to volunteer.
Sir, I'm sorry, I can't hear a word you're saying.
I don't know how much closer I can get to this mic, really.
Let's tip the mic up a little.
Yeah, the
There you go.
one thing I will just note, and I told Taylor this one, I don't know about Jim, when this video that I watched for this last hearing on December 19th, you have to really, there was times I had to go back because I could not hear.
That microphone?
Or anybody.
Your microphone and that microphone.
Wow.
I'll try to
so-
speak a little louder.
Probably
Yeah.
a type of microphone, because if these are picking it up
Ah,
well and that one's
That
not.
could be.
Yeah.
All right.
Just a clarification question. So as a certified tree expert, are you required to undergo or maintain continuing education credits?
Yes.
And what types of things do you have to do for that continuing education credits? What types of courses?
So it's any license, really. It's the same as any license, it has to be classes based on various forms, or various aspects of the industry, whether it's, biology or pruning or, soil.
Okay. And those courses are typically offered by what organizations that
lot of
offer CEUs?
There's a lot that offer. I probably get most of mine from either Rutgers or from our organization itself.
Okay.
What's the last one you did?
I'm doing one next week. We have our New Jersey's Garden State Tree Conference down in Atlantic City. It's a 2-day class where you can get, I think you can get about, I think you can get 11 credits. It's about an hour per credit. You're required to get 30 credits over a 2-year period, or 32 maybe.
Hey,
Just,
Steve, this sounds similar to
Just-
the,
yeah.
Wait, you have to have 32 over 2 years?
Correct.
So just from a
It's more than us.
contextual,
we need 24 over 2 years.
yeah, so when certified tree expert, when that designation came in, was it done in an attempt to professionalize the industry and demonstrate competency?
So it started a long time ago, kind of as a self-regulation. The state of New Jersey, so we were certified tree experts. And then the state of New Jersey kind of took it over and made it a licensed tree expert.
Yeah, so it is done through Department of Community Affairs and you're a
It's
licensed,
actually Department of the DEP.
the forestry, Bureau of Forestry.
Actually, it's not. It should be. It should be in agriculture. So it's in forestry, but it's not. It's through the DEP.
Okay. DEP.
You guys comfortable finding that he's a tree expert?
Certified tree expert is
Well,
equal.
he's a New Jersey
Licensed.
licensed tree expert, but do you accept him as an expert in trees?
What do you think?
What do you think? That he was asking.
That's, I'm asking you. I mean, John Thomas.
Well, it'll probably come out in testimony. I did have a meeting with Mr. Pearson earlier on, and I haven't worked with him personally, but I'm generally satisfied with everything I'm seeing in his report. And just as a little background, he mentioned that, other allied professionals can take the certified tree exam. And at one point I fancied myself, I thought I might go ahead and do that. And I found out that less people pass the certified tree expert exam on the first time than pass the landscape architects exam.
I was so for me, what I was going to say, because I do have some cases that deal with trees, it is definitely an art. You definitely got to know what you're doing. And it sounds like you have the credentials. And I'm glad that I asked you that question. But I do feel comfortable myself in saying that Mr. Pearson's an expert in trees.
So, because this is the first time you've ever been, dealing with a tree expert, and because this is his first time, he hasn't been accepted as an expert, a tree expert before, why don't you straw poll everyone before the chair makes her ruling? Because the chair, she does the initial rulings and they can reverse her on a majority vote. Why don't you just poll people to see if people are comfortable declaring and accepting him as an expert?
That's great. Taylor, you want to go down do you want me to, or you
Straw
want?
poll.
All right,
Cynthia, just do it.
James,
Yeah, I'm fine. He's state licensed, continuing education credits, and most importantly, John Morgan Thomas thinks he's legit.
Donna,
Yes.
Lorette,
Yes.
Randy, Steve,
Yes.
Russell, Jim, you okay?
Yeah. Yes, I'm okay.
Okay, you accept him as an expert?
Yes,
Tree expert.
yes.
Okay.
Now you can,
I accept his credit.
well, now, and
Yeah.
Mr. Pearson, now you can tell people you've been qualified as an expert in front of the board.
Now I've been
Don't forget
qualified.
that. That's your, I'm, as an
Yeah.
attorney, I'm telling you, you should do that.
Tell him it was the Raritan Township Board of Adjustment.
You have no idea what that means. Okay, so he's sworn in, he's all set. I'd like to have Mr. Nusser, again, still in the rope, just kind of go through the changes to the plans. And then from there, we'll go through the questions that remain outstanding in your expert reports.
All right, good evening.
Now, we don't need to submit this because this was submitted to the board.
Correct. This is a demonstrative exhibit. It's one of the sheets that the board has. All you gotta do is tell the board which sheet you're gonna be talking about.
Sheets 5 and 6.
And you need a microphone with you.
It's sheets 5 and 6.
Okay, sheet 5 and 6 of the plan set that's titled amended site plan, last revised February 7, 2025, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we made a number of revisions. As Mr. Thomas said earlier, we had a meeting with Mr. Thomas, with Mr. McCarthy was there, Jeff was there, and yeah, someone else was there. Oh, that's right, John Tully was there, thank you. And then myself and Todd and the applicant were present to go through basically what we talked about last time, work out the details as best we could in there on how we wanted to address the concerns that the board had. So we sat down, had that meeting. Todd had modified his remediation plan, the arborist report that you have before you. We took that plan and converted it onto what is sheet 6 of the plan set. The notes and the recommendations and the protocol for that 5-year period of what that is.
Just a quickie for a second. So Forest Glen Arborists LLC Tree Evaluation Remediation Plan prepared June 25, revised January 14, 2025. Do people have that? We don't have that. I think that was only submitted to Mr. Thomas. Was this thing, let's ask our board secretary, was this thing up on that, did we submit on the website?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
So we got to mark this as an exhibit. Do you have extra copies of it? And also, can you submit it electronically to the board office?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we're going to say that we have Exhibit A1. Exhibit A1 is the thing that was attached to applicant's attorney's letter that said Exhibit A, just put a -1 next to it. Exhibit A1 is the amended, the list of relief. She submitted that with her letter today. So Exhibit A1 is the Pioneer Developers List of Relief, amended preliminary and final site plan approval, in addition to whatever Ms. Kaczynski read into the record in her opening statement. Exhibit A2 is going to be the Forest Glen Arborists LLC Tree Evaluation Remediation Plan, last revised January 14, 2025.
Okay, so
Now, hold on. This is your copy. All right. Make sure I give this to our board secretary after we're done with it. And so board members do not have this, so you're going to have to explain, go through it. Fair enough. And now you're responsible to give it to Taylor. You know where her office is. Yeah, I know she
Put that
doesn't.
on the record. No, we don't. Weirdo.
Well, that was a little creepy.
It's gonna be one of those nights tonight.
it's a little punchy, that's okay. So the report is, I think the better way to say it is generally consistent with the prior report, taking into consideration the comments that we had in the discussion with Mr. Thomas to really break down and specify out different treatments for different areas. So I'm going to flip this over to page 6. So page 6 is the restoration plan, which incorporates what is in the Forest Glen Arborist report. If you're looking at your plan set along the right-hand side, or sorry, left-hand side of that sheet,
He's talking about.
yes, there is a tree maintenance protocol on there, and that's really taken from the recommendations within that report and making sure that they were all actionable items within there and really breaking out the different areas. Because as we talked about last time, Perfect.
I'll tell you what, can we take a quick break? Let's get this thing scanned. Let's get it put up on the screen so the board members can follow along.
Yeah,
Can we take a 5-minute break?
You'd
So-
rather have the report than the plans on the screen?
No, I'm going to do both, but can you give A2 to Jeff? He's going to scan it right now. Email it over to Taylor.
Call the meeting back to order.
Okay, so what my suggestion is to have Mr. Nusser ask our board secretary to put the tree evaluation remediation plan A2 up on the screen. Ask her to go to whatever page he's talking about, so the board can see what he's talking about, what these recommendations were, and then he can go back to his plan to show how he took the recommendations from the report and put them on the plan.
So if we could go to page 4 of the plan.
And Chris, can you pull that microphone a little closer to you?
Yes.
Great.
Just trying to give myself space and not just be eating the microphone, but. So as we're making our way over to, thank you. So the plan previously had a more site-wide protocol for dealing with the trees as opposed to kind of more area by area. And when we sat down and we met, what we talked about was there were, and I think we may have even talked about it in the previous hearing, there are different areas that should be treated differently based upon their characteristics. There's the, as it's shown on restoration plan sheet 6, there's the eastern tree area, which is over here, and that was the area with the biggest concern, I think, from the board and from Mr. Thomas. Those are mature trees that are providing some screening to the residential development to the east. And so the means and methods being used there is I forget what John's, if you call it belts and suspenders or gold standard or however it was referred to last time, that gets the full kind of package
In your hand.
of
What's that?
the trees. So if you look in here,
In here, meaning in the
We
report.
can't,
in the report,
Page
yes,
4.
on page 4, there are the 4th bullet where it says there are 7 mature shade trees and 5 younger shade trees in the eastern tree line. That would be this area of particular concern. There's a recommendation for doing air spading and excavating trenches 10 feet off of the retaining wall to the existing hedgerow, making the trenches in that orientation, as the report says, will aid in movement of rainwater away from the compacted root systems. The trenches should be 8 to 14 inches wide and 12 to 16 inches deep, and should be backfilled with a mixture of organic compost and the existing soil/mulch. So there's a recommendation made in there, and what we had done on the plan in the tree maintenance protocol, again, is on the left side here of sheet 6, is to take that and make it a little more, to take it away from being a recommendation and make it a
Part of the plan.
part of the plan and something that shall be done. And so just as you go through here, I don't want to read through them all ad nauseum, but what we did was we took this plan and we, like I said, we modified it so that it made it part of the plan and made it something actionable and something enforceable. And it, as opposed to being year-based 2025, 2026, as you can see here on sheet 4, it's, year 1 and then the subsequent years, what would happen in there in each of those years. So this being year 1 and the start of that plan.
And year 1 being obviously 2025. So where
Correct.
year
Can I-
1 is referenced on the plan, you're dealing with each bullet point underneath 2025 on page 4 of the report.
Correct. Can I ask Mr. John Thomas a question? Just, unless the board wants him to go through every single bullet in the report and how, and whether they put something on the plan. The general question is, are you satisfied with the report in general? And if you have anything in particular that you're not satisfied with, could you tell the board? That's my first question. The second question is, let's assume the board is satisfied after everything that is said this evening. I imagine that there should, if there's an approval condition, it should incorporate by reference the report with the dates by which these things are supposed to be done, but anywhere it says should, I should make it a shall. So those are my two questions. Mr. Thomas answers that, this could cut down the amount of time spent on this report.
And there may even be some portion of his report that I think might address some of those changes in the plans.
Yeah, and I think that the short answer is yes, generally I'm satisfied with the report as revised. And it was revised, we discussed a number of these, the initial report in our meeting that Mr. Nusser was describing. And again, one of the things that was discussed is that in the arborist report, that a lot of the items weren't actionable. They weren't written as a technical specification. So that was included on the plan. And just kind of in the short form here, in my original report, I said something to the effect like, I think what we need to do here is, the gold standard of remediation. My discussion with Mr. Pearson, and I agreed with him, is that, when you have this kind of disturbance underneath the root zone of trees, there's not a real great fix, because you can't get in there and simply decompact the soil. And I'll give an example. Some of the board members might have been around during one of our original solar applications where we had an incredible problem with soil compaction by multiple passes with trucks. And the solution was, and this is something I worked out with Mr. Capola, the township engineer, what happened on that site is we had one of the local farmers with the biggest tractor I've ever seen using a subsoil plow, plowing down to the depth of almost 24 inches. We can't do that under these conditions. That would kill the tree right away. So what we're doing is kind of trying to develop some kind of approach. So you can't do that physically, but there are a few things you can do. And one of the things you can do, the gold standard, is this process with an air spade, which has been redescribed as, kind of cut. They do that with radial trenching.
What is radial trenching? And
What is an air spade? So an air spade is simply a very powerful air compressor. And amazingly, when you direct that, and it's specific to the arboriculture industry, when you direct that at the ground, you can actually dig. You can dig a trench with air, with compressed air. It blows all the soil and even some rock out of the soil. You can dig a hole with it, but it's like kind of like a sandblasting machine. It leaves the roots intact because the roots are flexible. So, even this, it causes a tremendous amount of disturbance. You only do it if you have to, but it's a good way. We've used it in my practice on jobs where we had to install utility lines underneath. And you can do excavations with it. It's very time consuming, and there is a disturbance that goes along with it. So the conversation that I had with Mr. Pearson was, maybe there's some areas where this is appropriate, where we think the trees are more valuable and where the disturbance was the greatest. So,
is that reflected anywhere in this report?
and that's reflected in the report, and on Mr. Nusser's plans, it said in the area at the, help me, Chris,
It's the eastern tree area.
the eastern tree area.
There's a note that says that on
It's labeled as the eastern tree area, and then it says within the tree maintenance plan 3.2 on here
So
for
to
the
clarify-
eastern tree area.
Yeah, my concern is those trees aren't specifically called out on the plan. I think it would be helpful.
What do you
if we
mean
knew
by-
which
sorry.
9 trees you're talking about explicitly and which 7?
And so if I may, that's why we took the arborist report and we turned it into this plan so that we could make it more actionable and make it something that everybody could understand. So those trees are, what he's referring to is these trees over here, that's
That's
the,
more than 9 trees. So that's where I don't know which 9 trees in that area this
It's-
report.
this is going to be, this is for that and all the trees in that
All the
space.
All the trees in the area, more than 9. What he's saying is they went over inclusive. So even though the report pointed out 9, all the trees in that area are subject to this note. Is that correct, Mr. Nestor?
Yes.
And that's the way I interpreted it. So
Okay.
he sort of grouped them together and made the areas larger.
Are there any aspects of the report which are factually inaccurate or you don't agree with if there's any factual inaccuracies, can you correct them? And if there's anything that you don't agree with, can you tell the board about it so they can discuss it? Because the things you do agree with, I have a feeling that the board is going to trust your judgment on it.
So, yes, and let me just finish one last piece here, and the piece was, so those trees in that area on the eastern side, that whole big group, we're using a variation of the air spade treatment, which is the radial trenching, which is digging out the trenches with the air spade, putting good soil in. Other areas on the site, we determined that I agreed with Mr. Pearson that we could use the method that he originally proposed, which is basically a air and water injection in the root zones of the trees. And that's to occur in the other areas of the site. And quite frankly, and I think it says this exactly in Mr. Nusser's report, that we, in the notes, that the first step is we're going out to the site. I'm going out to the site with Mr. Pearson. We're going to do some shovel tests. We're going to expose it down to the actual soil level. And at that time, we'll kind of do a final evaluation. And if we see something that's substantially different or what neither of us was expecting, we may modify this plan. I mean, that's the bottom.
And
Is that correct?
that is correct. That's note number 3. It says in the spring, and then it says note, the exact remediation methods are subject to the review of existing conditions by the arborist and landscape architect. The scope of the initial treatment shall be detailed in the initial arborist report and approved by the township. So yes, it would
Okay.
be, if any modifications would have to happen at that time, that's
And then to get back to Mr. Drill's question about kind of, I did have a couple of factual items that I wanted to correct.
That, again, assuming that at the end of the evening, there's an approval coming out of this, and that a condition of the approval is going to take A2 and insert it as a condition, I'm going to need the arborist to submit A2 as a Word doc and email it. And anything that you're about to say about corrections have to be corrected in it. So could you get a pen in your report and start taking notes on whatever Mr. Thomas is about to say?
just, can I ask a question first? I understand where you're going with that, and I appreciate it. I thought the intent of the discussion of having this report turned into the plan was to make it so that you didn't have to do that, that the recommendations would be made into.
But no, I understand that. What I'm talking about, my bad, page 4 and 5, where it has the schedule, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. Do you have a note on the plan that does that?
That's the tree maintenance protocol that's on this sheet, that's on sheet 6, is this turned into the actionable items.
Okay, it does say year 1, year.
On the
It's-
plan, it says year 1, year 2.
Okay.
Well, it
then-
says year 1 and then years 2 through 5 because they're
Okay, so it doesn't say 2025, 2026. It uses year one, year two, all the way through year five?
Right, because this actually starts at 2024 on page 3,
Okay.
and
All
so,
right, that's fine. So this doesn't physically have to be, but if any of those, someone has to take notes of this because I don't exactly know, I don't know what he's going to say, number one. And number two, if any of the notes have to be changed because of this, I guess, Chris, you have to take good notes on this. And I'm going to end up asking Mr. Thomas to somehow send me something. But if the notes have to change to
yeah,
be
understood.
consistent with what he says, or maybe they don't, but maybe the report just has to be changed. So
And if I could just ask a question for clarification, we could do it now or later. We've got year one, we've got 2025. When does this start? Because we are not done with construction. We are not done with an approval. So I just wanted, let's keep that in mind so we know what this time period is. Is it a year? Is it a year from a certain date? When does that go?
you should also address that. Good point. But start, what page are you on?
I'm on page 3 of 5.
Okay.
And this was really just kind of it's page 3 of 5, and it's, sorry. It's in the section of Mr. Pearson's report called Initial Site Inspection Report. And I think this is kind of pretty much unchanged from his initial report.
That started on page 2 of 5.
It started on page 2 of 5. Well, let me just start at the bottom of 205 because it's the same paragraph. And it says, aeration is the next priority. Our initial evaluations and recommendations may be altered in some specific root zones as soil is removed, as moved or removed, which is kind of what we were talking about. Upon discussion with the site work managers and visible evidence, it appears that machinery used was of a track variety. When driving within the root zones, track equipment delivers the least amount of pressure per square inch of soil, which I agree in theory, but I wasn't on the site looking at the equipment. I know they use some very large equipment on the site. It also goes on to say much of the soil that is encroaching on the root zones was moved through either gravity or rain runoff, which I'm just going to have to say I don't agree with. I think this should be removed from the, I think this is not correct. I don't think
Editorial comment, it's not necessary, and you basically don't believe that it was moved through gravity or rain runoff.
Unless gravity is dumping off the back of a very large truck. It's the condition that we had, just to be clear, the condition that we had on portions of the site was we had 3 to 4 feet of soil filled around trees. That's what I saw when I was first on the site. So
I have a question. If that's true, what you're saying, what does that mean in terms of
it
the
doesn't
solution?
mean anything in terms of
The
what is
solution.
proposed as a solution here. I just wanted to
Okay.
Yeah, but wait a second.
He's saying it doesn't change the remediation part of it. He just wants to make sure that as a factual matter, the document's accurate and that the fact that all that soil got around the trees, we had testimony in December on what happened.
Mhm.
The testimony wasn't that, it rained so hard that the soil just, moved like that.
And just for clarification, I was just talking to Mr. Pearson. This was the state of the property when he went there. It was his belief, obviously, that particular statement was in the report initially prepared on June 25th. That wasn't part of the revision in January.
Right, that's what he's saying.
Okay, no, just saying, okay.
It's that, right, that's why he wants it removed he wants that sentence removed from the report.
And I think that's probably what he did witness when he was there, but that
Correct.
was after the
Correct.
first round of soil being removed.
Yep.
So it's a kind of a different animal. And then he also goes on to say this soil has been in place for a few months, which it had been in place for 9 months at that point, 9 months to a year. So again, he was at the site at a later date, but
This soil has been in place for a number of months, instead of a few months.
correct.
A number of months. The rest of the sentence
And everything else, is fine, but it, quite frankly, it made it sound a little less serious than I felt it was.
So John, down through the sentence where it says ironically, the same soil has provided a positive, though temporary, effect within the covered root zone. That's factually not.
Well, I'd asked Mr. Pearson to explain that, but I think the idea is that we had some very hot, dry weather. And at the time, there was a cap of soil left on that wasn't 4 feet deep.
But
And it
now-
might actually have been cooling the roots. That was my,
But right
that was my
now-
supposition. So
but
is
right
that,
now,
is that
it's-
correct at the time?
At the time, but since all these things were.
And I don't know if it's more appropriate to have an addition to this with these comments, as opposed to like a red line or a rewriting of the report, if we do an
The
attachment.
condition is going to say that A2 needs one more revision
Okay, okay.
to knock out the things that Mr. Thomas is talking about right now.
And again, these comments aren't about the proposed remediation. It was simply just a kind of a background.
Okay.
And John, I'm sorry, you had you had part two of your question. No, is that, okay.
So one other thing to note here on the tree maintenance protocol that's on the plan, it includes inspections by not just the arborist on a regular basis, but also Mr. Thomas going out with him to do the inspection, to look for, the conditions of the trees, if any of the trees are dead. We talked about last time, and there are notes on here as well. If any of those trees were to die and be removed, that there would be replacement trees for that as well, which we added the trees from the tree index from the original plans here onto the plan, so we know what those trees are, so we don't have to go look back to Mr. Thomas's point to me. We don't have to go look back. We have one plan set and we can see this is what the trees were. So if any of those trees do die, we know what what it was and what that mitigation needs to be for those trees.
And Chris, I don't think it's on your plan, but I just want to ask John, I think it's going to be part of the resolution, John, that you had said, if the inspection is not met and the arborist is not available, that the owner would take on the expense of the township having an arborist meet that schedule. Something to that.
That was my recommendation, just as an enforcement
in-
issue, like if we say we're going to schedule these
In the
twice a
fall.
year in the fall and nothing happens or we don't get reports, my
Right.
recommendation is then the township would hire their own arborist at the applicant's expense to go out and do the same thing.
And
make
because
the
it's in his report, it's not on the plan. But it'll be in the resolution.
And obviously after notice and, at that point, so if we're not responding to when the inspections are scheduled, then obviously it's at that point.
Obviously.
Yeah, okay.
We'll have to figure that out. I'm not going to agree to anything like that right now, but where is that?
It's on his report.
Where in your report is that?
Right here.
Yeah. No. This is on John Morgan Thomas's. It's,
In his report, I believe,
Yeah, it's at the very bottom of 5. So page
Yeah.
2 of John's report,
Yeah.
under paragraph 5, the very last sentence.
so instead of having a note, we'll have a condition in the resolution stating if the applicant fails to conduct inspections, issue reports, and implements required actions, the township reserves the right to engage a private arborist at the owner's expense.
You don't need to do that. It is on the plans.
Can't hear you.
It is on the plans.
Okay, where is it on the plan?
It is restoration note number 5.
Restoration note number 5. It
Yeah.
is on the plan, okay?
So on the right side of the plans, that note was included.
Thank you.
And maybe the condition, John, to your point, as long as
We
John,
don't need a condition now. It's a note on the plan.
understood,
Yeah.
understood, but we're going through to make sure that everything that's in John Thomas's report that we've agreed to is on the plan. Maybe the condition is, if there is any that's missing, we'll
Add
put it
to
on the plan.
That's a good idea.
So that way
Okay.
it's all
Yep.
encompassing and we don't have to worry about it.
Can I ask a clarifying question about one of the notes where it says trenches under the tree maintenance protocol year one, note number 3.2. It says the trenches shall be backfilled with a mixture of organic compost and existing soil / mulch. Is there a percentage of organic matter that you'd like to see brought in so that it's not wood chips that are on the site and as opposed to real compost? Like, are you looking for a mixture of 50% compost and then 50% soil mulch mixture? Or what's the ideal mixture? Because I think it's pretty nebulous about what would comply.
I'm going to let Mr. Pearson add. My answer would be that what we're putting in the trench is mostly compost, more than 50%. We have some topsoil issues on the site anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the topsoil component is going to be. So I think it's going to be a soil mix that's high in organic matter.
Right.
But I think I might ask Mr. Pearson right now to just indicate what, in his opinion, what the proper mixture should be in those trenches.
So you kind of put me on the spot here. My desired response would be, I can't really answer that question until I see the quality of the soil that's there. If the quality of the soil that there is high in organic material, then I think just mixing in a little bit of wood chips, and I mentioned perhaps biochar, would be sufficient. If we found it to be, depleted of organic material, which I doubt in a previously wooded area, I doubt that it would be depleted. But if it was depleted, then I would, kind of base it on that. I mean, you could say 50-50 is pretty high. That's a lot of compost. You might actually generate a little bit of excessive root growth in the trenches and not digging deep where they really need to survive long term. So it's a really hard question to give you a direct answer without knowing exactly what's there.
If I can, the recommendation or the requirement in the maintenance plan was that there's an initial site visit between you and Mr. Pearson. He's going to provide a report with those recommendations, and that report would include a recommendation on that for your approval from an amount of, what that looks like
Okay.
based upon that.
I think that's fine. That makes sense.
Just to be clear, that doesn't mean dumping wood chips in the trench, and that meets the
No,
standard.
no.
So that,
Correct.
there
Yes,
are
that's absolutely
There are
correct.
excess wood chips around that site.
Yes, and this will be John's going to have
Final say.
final say on that. So that's, not a,
So I guess I'd like that note clarified that says, that it should be backfilled with a mixture of organic compost and at the direction and agreement with our landscape architect.
Where that is.
It's note number, well, either in the report or in the notes on the plan, it's number 3.2.
Give me the.
Oh, that's, it's not in John's.
Okay, and give me the note on the plan. So
The note,
what on the plan?
6 of 10,
Sheet 6 of 10, note number what?
tree maintenance protocol,
Protocol,
year 1,
year 1,
3.2.
3.2. Read me what it says and then read me what you want changed.
Well, the trenches shall be backfilled with a mixture of organic compost and the existing soil mulch.
It amounts to be determined.
But
So-
based on the recommendation and approval of our,
If you want to add to the end of the sentence. Year one of the tree maintenance plan. on sheet 6 of 10. What am I adding?
I mean, per the guidance provided by
As determined by the board landscape
architect.
architect.
Yeah, I just think it needs to be
Okay.
clear.
Do we want to say determined or approved? I mean,
As
I-
approved.
That
Approved.
sounds good.
I think just to John's point, I think John would prefer approved.
Board landscape architect.
Thank you.
And I just had one last comment about the inspections. One of the intentions here was,
So where are you in your report?
uh, I'm not in the report, I'm on the notes.
Okay, you're on the notes. Where are you on the notes? Plod along through it, all the points. It'd be one of, maybe not one of the most exciting hearings.
On sheet 6 of 10, which is the restoration plan, and these are the notes that Chris has been referring to, tree maintenance protocol. And this is really just informational for the board, but we have basically an inspection in the spring. The arborist is inspecting in the summertime, and this is year one as well as years 2 through 5. And then there's an inspection in the fall where I would like to be present, and that's where we look at the condition of the trees, the existing trees on the site, as well as the planted ones. And if there are any trees that are dead or dying, existing or planted trees, then we want those trees replaced that season. So we're not correct.
So that's what the report, that's what this says,
That's,
right?
and that's exactly
That's what
what it
this
says.
says.
I just wanted the board to be aware that that's
That was
the purpose
informational.
that
It
we
wasn't,
have
he wasn't making a suggestion or a change to the report. He was just identifying for the board and for, yes.
Yes.
I know you were trying to go, okay, wait, what do I need to change? What do I need to write down? But the answer was nothing.
And okay, sorry. And the reason, and the reason being that we don't want to wait till the end of the 5-year warranty period and then start to replace trees. We want to keep going. So that is in the notes and that is correct.
Thank you so much.
John, we're looking,
Where were you? In the
Okay.
tree maintenance protocol?
page 6,
So if
restoration.
If you're looking at the restoration notes and you look at, say, 3.1, it says an inspection shall be performed by a certified arborist. So in the spring, in the summer, there's a number 5, an inspection shall be performed by a certified arborist. But then number 6, for in the fall, it says an inspection shall be performed by a certified arborist along with the township landscape architect.
Got it.
So it's just, there's 3 inspections throughout the year, but John is present for one of them. And that's where the, looking for the dead and dying trees would be identified
And replace that
and
season.
replace that
Yes,
season.
that's, I think, the point he really wanted to make, that we're not gonna be waiting, we're gonna replace it,
Right.
they're gonna be identified and replaced that season, obviously to the extent. we can.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, so I had a little, like, very brief outline and I'll start it now. So, within the plans, and I don't have this plan printed, but the tree canopy removal plan, which is sheet 7, we had updated that based upon the discussion last time to include the areas that were disturbed underneath the tree canopies. So that relief is revised, and that number is 89.71%. So where 76.96 was approved, 81.09 was what it was previously, without the area underneath the trees included. Now, with the area disturbed underneath the trees, the number is 89.71%.
Hold on for a second. So exhibit A1, you're saying, has to be modified. Item 2, Kara submitted with her letter. Look at item 2, the variance from ordinance section 296-75 S2 in order to permit the removal of, she has 84.9. What are you saying that, what should that figure be?
You're saying 89.
89.71.
89.71. And just so I can understand, explain how you got to 89.71 again?
So if you look at the tree canopy removal plan, which is the aerial plan on there, we had the initially approved removal that occurred. There was some additional canopy areas that were removed. And at the last hearing, the discussion was that what also needed to be included within the canopy removal based upon the definition of the ordinance is any areas where the root zones and the trees were impacted. And so
Right.
those areas were included as well. And that's what brings us to the 89.
So give me the initially approved removal was
79 point, I'm sorry,
70
79.96.
No, 76.96.
76.96.
96.
The additional area removed was
12.74%.
12.74, and if I add that together,
Hopefully that's good math and gets us to 89.71.
not really,
Well, you know, it's
close.
it's rounding
Mm-hmm.
is what it is.
89.7, all right, that's all right. All right. 89, I'll use your 89.71.
Rather be higher than lower.
Right. Okay, next point.
So the changes to the plans, there was a couple things that were included.
Can I just, I'm sorry, one clarifying question around the tree removal. So that,
Yes.
but that doesn't include the tree removal that was done on property that you don't, the applicant doesn't own.
Correct. This is on,
So there was additional tree removal on property that they don't own that was New Jersey DOT property and township property.
It's true.
Well, while you think about that answer, can you just clarify for me? So on Kara's Exhibit A, so she had what was previously approved is what number?
76.96.
it should be
Okay.
76.96.
It should be
Okay.
76.96.
Okay, and then in order to permit the removal of what number?
89.71.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So now I'll edit that.
Yep,
I can
thank
do
you.
that.
I
No,
thought
you-
it's an exhibit.
Right, it's an exhibit. We're just going to mark up the exhibit.
So no, it doesn't include any tree removal that occurred on an adjacent property. And we did not
So how-
calculate that because quite frankly, the ordinance is what occurs on the property.
So how do we deal with that?
I don't know. Do you have a calculation though? Do you
No.
know,
Yeah, they do.
do you have a calculation
No.
for how much trees were removed on township property and how much trees were removed on,
DOT.
didn't document them at the beginning? So they don't know, they can't calculate how much they removed, they didn't have a documentation for how much were there.
They do know how many square feet that's on.
Yeah, yeah.
See it.
Put it this way, can you somehow estimate
That's
by,
what we're
by
just
looking at
talking
the,
about.
so can we take another 5-minute recess so we can do an estimation? And John, can you go over there with him?
Okay, calling the meeting back to order.
I believe we took a break to see if you could estimate somehow of how many or what sort of trees were taken out on at least the municipal property, not so much the DOT property. I think the question was more about the municipal property. So, Mr. Nusser, did you come up with anything?
No, I mean, if you look at to go to the DOT property that had been previously, I believe that was previously an agricultural field. It had been ceased to be used for that. And there's a lot of successional growth. There's red cedars that grew in. But for the most part, the area that was filled, there's a couple cedars in that space, but it was really all just scrub and no trees in that area, in my opinion. Along the municipal boundary there and across there, it's
When you say the municipal boundary, it's not the
not
municipal,
the municipal boundary, the municipal property.
right, the municipal, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
To the, let's just orient.
To the north.
Okay.
So it's hard to say, based upon the footprint quality of the old plan that I have, and what everybody's able to pull up on their phones to look at, say what it is. Looking at the old plan that I do have, I mean, to me, you can clearly see where the trees are. They're on an angle. You can see that there's a gap, and then they start again. But where the filling was related to those trees, whether it impacted them or not, I don't know. I assume there's some impacts within that space. I believe I know it's municipal property. That's also the landfill, I believe. That's the municipal landfill. The old landfill is not used for that now. So I don't know, is that within the limits of the landfill? I never knew where the limits of the landfill were, but it's on that counter slope there because it really.
Yeah, but would it matter what, if it's a landfill or if it was a landfill or not?
Shouldn't have trees growing on a landfill.
However,
That's correct. I mean, there was proposed landscaping, or a question came up of proposed landscaping on township property. It was not agreed upon just because of the situation of the landfill and concerns over it.
So can we request stabilization and reseeding of that area and shrubby, some type of landscaping at the direction of our landscape architect?
We are proposing to stabilize and seed and restore that space in that manner. But again, if it's within the limits of the landfill, it's frowned upon to plant anything.
Yeah, I wasn't asking for trees. I was asking for
But
stabilization.
I mean, even shrubs, anything that would penetrate
Yeah.
through the capital landfill, it's generally
But
frowned upon.
you went in there with machinery and bulldozed and disturbed the area. So, it's kind of.
No, look, I understand
It's
that.
kind of counterintuitive to say now you don't want to put any kind of, warm season grasses or something like that that would stabilize the
That
slope.
would be fun. Warm season grass, and I think that might even be what.
Or cool
I don't know whether
grasses or
I don't know
whatever.
whether that's indicated on the plan. The rest of the disturbed portions of the site, including the new reforestation areas, have the native meadow mix that we requested.
Right.
That's been added to this revision. So if that was used on these disturbed areas, I think that would be appropriate. So is there any indication on your plans about restoring, or do I have to make that a condition?
There is notation about restoring it, but if you want to make it a condition, because I'm not sure that it's 100% clear that area is.
Okay, so I'm going to make this very easy. I'm going to ask Mr. Thomas to write me up a condition about how they're going to restore the municipal property. And the suggestion by Donna Drews is the same sort of grasses
Native soil.
Based on
grasses,
yeah.
something.
that what Chris just said.
the meadow mix that's already specified within the plans would just be extended into that area.
So they'll
Okay.
restore and stabilize.
All right, so
area.
John, you can give me language before I leave the municipal building tonight, yes?
Yes.
All right.
And what I'm gonna look for, the meadow mix is one that we discussed is on sheet 5 of 10. I'm just looking for the note, if there's a note on the plan, Chris, already that says all
Yeah, but when it,
off-site
ah, okay. So look to see if that note's already there or maybe, or we have to add it.
And if the effect is going to be the same and it's developed to spend it in two places, I don't think that's necessarily okay.
All right, can we make sure we're speaking to the microphones, everyone?
All right.
You'll have to read them to see how you want to adjust them.
So here it is, note number 3. Under restoration.
Apparently it's note number 3 and everyone's reading it right now to see if it covers the situation currently or if that note has to be revised in any way.
I'm reading.
Well, you need a microphone.
I'm looking at on sheet 5, the landscaping plan, there's note 14 and 15 that says topsoil and seed all disturbed areas, and then all remaining disturbed areas shall be seeded unless otherwise noted. I would only add that this includes offsite areas because it's kind of not the usual situation.
Okay,
We're
so
talking about
give me, so we're going to add reference to off-site areas also to notes.
15.
And the off-site disturbed areas are clearly on the plans. That's just a question. Just want to make sure that we know exactly where those
Yeah, because
off-site areas are.
what's disturbed, what's considered a disturbed area, it doesn't say disturbed areas on site, it says disturbed areas, and the plan clearly shows
Period. Okay.
the disturbed areas on it.
So the plan shows the disturbed areas on the township property also?
Yeah,
And it shows it on the NJDOT property?
yeah, if you go to sheet
On
8
the-
of the
along the
plan set,
driveway.
which was in there previously, it shows the limited disturbance
What sheet, please?
8. Oh. There's a green line and an orange line. The orange line was the approved limit disturbance and the green was the actual limited disturbance. And it shows the disturbance as it went off-site.
Offsite.
So we are.
Okay, so
depicting
John,
the
note
totality.
15 is on what sheet of the plans?
5.
Okay, so how about this? As a condition in the resolution, applicant shall restore disturbed areas on municipal property as well as NJDOT property per note 15 on sheet 5 of the plans. That cover it? Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so Chris, where were you going next after?
I think I was going to stand up, actually. All right, so we're close. We're on sheet 5, and I just wanted to note a couple of things on here. And actually, oh, I thought it transferred on there and it didn't, so I apologize. We're going to look just quickly on sheet 4. On sheet 4, the conservation easement area was limited to the most restrictive of the DEP buffers, basically, on the property, based upon Jeff's report and his recommendation. The conservation easement was modified to include all the areas beyond what will be the ultimate limited disturbance. So not the limited disturbance, but it will put the areas that are within the that were disturbed and the trees were disturbed in those areas where the reforestation is going to happen will be in the conservation easement area. So that area expanded out for his request.
And we could do a calculation of that area also.
Yeah, we'll provide a description of that as requested in the engineer's report. We updated the landscaping plan.
John, my plan is he's just finishing up some changes. Then I'm gonna go through Jeff's letter, the engineer's letter, John's letter, and say,
Yeah.
item 4 was open,
Well-
he addressed it in his testimony. Item 6, I'll go.
Thank
one by
you.
one.
Yeah. Not trying to,
Okay,
but, okay, so then,
I'm not used to just sitting here listening, but I'll do.
so we have sheet 5 up that we're looking at here on the board, and that plan was modified based upon the meeting that we did have with Mr. Thomas and the other professionals to modify the landscaping and the replacement trees to meet his request that we, in some places, reduce the evergreen species being planted and otherwise make sure that everything was to his satisfaction. And then therefore the tree replacement schedule, which is on that plan right above the title block, just for clarity of what is an on-site tree, that is an evergreen, those are a little bit larger. What is an on-site reforestation tree, what that means caliper inch wise, and then what's left as an off-site tree, or either off-site or paid in lieu, a tree for that amount. So then totaling that total required replacement tree of 2566 caliper inches, as is noted in Mr. Thomas's report. And that includes the old trees, the ones previously approved to be removed that needed to be replaced, as well as the additional ones that needed to be replaced. And I had that calculation for that split for John's sake, as an additional 366 caliper inches removed after, and then 2,200 trees or 2,200 caliper inches of trees. Very big difference. You say caliper inches versus number of trees. 2,200 caliper inches of trees that had to be replaced as part of the original approval.
Is this, we have a charter or something of this? So why don't we get this thing marked as Exhibit A3? Yeah. So Chris, just give me a name. This A3 is a chart of what?
Replacement tree requirements.
Okay, chart of replacement tree requirements.
So.
Yeah,
Sure.
let's go for the numbers first before we
Yep.
do dollars.
Yep. Let's not do that.
I want to ask John Thomas to review this chart and find out if he agrees or disagrees with the numbers of trees on the chart.
So the
And
2,200,
I do have a question. Is it based on this new number of 89 point whatever, 71 or whatever
Yes.
it was?
no, be very clear, the 89.71 number, right, let me take this step back and I'll get to that.
That's the canopy, these are trees.
So the 2,200 caliper inches is what was required to be replaced as part of the original approval.
76, whatever.
The overage of the excess of the 55% up to the 76.79. The additional 366 caliper inches doesn't take us to the 89, whatever that number is, because a lot of those trees are still standing, remember. Those trees are there on,
Remember, they disturbed areas of that percentage. There's trees are still there. There's a condition that if they end up dying, they're going to do something about it. This chart, as I understand it, and forget the dollars for now, but this chart on the numbers, which I'm asking John Thomas to check the numbers, the top part, original replacement tree requirements is what they were approved to remove. And the second part is the additional trees per the amended site plan. Those are the additional trees that they didn't have approval for that they removed. Right. All I want is, I see the numbers. I just want to wait till John runs through it and see if he agrees with the numbers.
Yeah, and let me just explain how the numbers are in here. So the 2,200, as I said, was what was required to replace as part of the original. The on-site replacement is what we're showing on sheet 5 of the plan set, the total caliper inches corresponding to the 2 lines that are on that chart. The off-site replacement is based upon the 3 sites that Mr. Thomas had provided as off-site mitigation, places where we could plant, was included in his report. Those 3. Yes.
3 sites, yeah.
So the 3 sites are on there totaling the 950 trees, which again, from last time, 950 trees, 1.25 caliper, 1.25 caliper inches per tree, gets us to the 1188 caliper inches offsite, leaving a payment in lieu for the original of 343 caliper inches.
Which equates to 275 trees.
Yes. If they were the 1.25 inch.
Correct.
So
caliper
John,
trees.
So
I don't want to do the dollars yet until I find out from John if he
Exactly.
agrees with the numbers, the caliber inches.
And if we take the 2,200 caliper inches from the original approval on the first line, plus the 366 caliper inches on the amended site plan on the bottom portion, those two total the 2566 caliper inches in John's report.
Correct.
So those two numbers together match that 2566
And-
old and new.
Mr. Domji, to your question, again, none of those numbers count for the trees that are shown in green here on the
got it, I
restoration
got it.
plan. Those would be handled separately.
and
they were
you
to-
did testify earlier that
Yes.
those you do have numbers. If something dies, that there's a
Correct. Yes.
one-on-one.
Okay, now, so, John, those numbers check out? Okay.
Yes, I think that if we're working back to the 2,566 as the total number, that is the correct number.
Now, go through the calculation, because in December, according to my notes, first of all, the question was, do the new ordinances apply or not? And I gave my opinion that they do, because the amended site plan application, in my opinion, is a substantial amendment. Under the municipal land use law and case law, if you have a substantial amendment, it's considered a new application.
Correct.
Under the time of application law, the ordinance in effect at the time of an application, which would be this new application, applies. Therefore, I rendered the opinion the new ordinance applies. The new ordinance is $300 a tree if you're not going to plant it. The old ordinance was $75 a tree. So I'm assuming that the fee in lieu total for all trees removed per the prior ordinance at $6,600 is based on $75 a tree.
Yeah, so it's based upon the
The largest size tree and the cost associated with that.
right, because the way the ordinance worked previously was
It was a certain amount per tree. I
But put
have
it this
the
way,
ordinance.
whatever it is, the $6,600 is the prior ordinance, but unless the board is willing to change, because the board agreed, they were polled, they agreed with my opinion, and I thought that, Ms. Kaczynski, you then said, here's our plan. When we come back, we're going to have a mixture of on-site tree replacement, off-site tree replacement with the cash in lieu payment based on $300 a tree. That's what you said the applicant said. So are you here asking that the board reconsider that?
I am asking that the board reconsider. that.
This is my opinion. To keep it simple, why don't you just plant everything, and that way there's no issue about pricing. Keep it simple.
Yeah, actually, Mr. Thomas, you gave them 3 sites. How many sites are available for planting trees in the township?
I reviewed this with Jeff and the Environmental Commission. We probably, I'm going to say at least 10 sites. At least 10, if not 12.
So if there, let's say there's 10 sites, not even 12 sites, are there enough sites that if the board said, you know what, we're not going to grant you that exception, you got to plant them all either on site or off site? You have enough sites for them to plant all these trees?
Plenty.
So the board could deny the exception and say, plant them all, which I have a feeling costs probably more than $300 a tree. But you can still ask the board if they want to reconsider.
What, you're asking us to not charge $300 a tree, which is what our code ordinance.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I don't want to get into that argument considering all the issues which are happening. So I'm just recommending that let's just have them plant all of them.
They don't have the space.
Yeah, they can plant the remainder of them. John Thomas says the township has between 10 and 12 sites. And
That's
Russ,
not what you're saying.
yeah, that's what he's saying.
That's exactly what I'm
Oh.
saying.
Plant them all.
Plant them all. Instead, don't do any in lieu payment. Plant them all.
Can I I just want to put on the record so everybody's clear as to the differences between the ordinances. My client is here, he's going to hear everything, but I just want to show the differences. There's a little bit more, and again, just for the record, a little bit more than just the payment. And to Mr. John Domji's question, that very well may be where we end up, where the board asks to end up. But if we look at the old ordinance, the language of the old ordinance says that if it's impossible, where replacement, so I'm looking at section 296-75, T as in Tom, subsection 4, where replacement trees are required but not suitable for the particular site because of site constraints. And then there's a bunch of different site constraints that are listed. The township shall impose a fee in lieu of planting, or the applicant has the ability to plant replacement trees on public lands designated by the township. So the old one appeared, and again, just for the record, just to make it clear, so it's there, to give the applicant the option, the township shall impose a fee unless the applicant agrees to do so.
Read the ordinance language again,
So
the old one.
where replacement trees are required, but not suitable for the particular site because of site constraints, including but not limited to, and it goes through.
Yeah, but including but not limited to lack of space.
Slopes, topography, grading, runoff, wetlands, floodplains, riparian or associated buffers, stormwater detention or retention facilities, existing structures, existing easements, and any other physical or environmental feature which physically impedes the option to plant the replacement trees.
Okay, then,
The township shall impose a fee in lieu of planting. Or
or,
the applicant has the ability to plant the replacement
Right,
trees
so
on public.
to me, that's not giving the applicant the option. What that's saying, the township shall do one or the other. If the applicant has the ability to do it on other sites, the town, then it shall. That they have it's the board that has the option and not the applicant. That's my opinion of what that language means.
John, what's the new ordinance?
So the new ordinance says, same subsection T 4, I believe, bear with me. That is T 4. Where replacement trees are required, but not suitable for the particular site because of site constraints, including but not limited to, and basically has all of those same indications I just referenced. The township shall impose a fee in lieu of planting, or the applicant has the ability to plant replacement trees on public lands.
It's the same language. The difference is the dollar amount.
Okay.
Both the old and the new, in my opinion, say the shall is the township's option, not the applicant's option. So under either ordinance, whichever one applies, in my opinion, if the board says, you know what, we don't want to haggle around with charging for trees, we want you to plant them, and Mr. Thomas, your expert, says we have 10 or 12 sites and it can accommodate all the trees, you could just say, we're not granting the exception, plant them.
Now, I'm just going to say one more thing,
Yep.
again, just to make a complete record. Subsection 5 of the new ordinance that talks about tree replacement schedule. That has the number of replacement trees shall be the equivalent of 1 to 1.5 inch caliper trees. A fee in lieu of planting may be allowed to be calculated based on current market costs. In the event, I'm just going to start from the very beginning. Let's put this completely on the record. New ordinance, T5, tree replacement schedule. A, the number of replacement trees shall be the equivalent of 1 to 1.5 inch caliper trees or greater, needed to equal the diameter at breast height of the removed tree. In the event that replacement trees are not feasible on site or off site at a designated township-owned
Okay,
site.
stop. If they're not feasible on site or off site. Here, John's saying they're feasible off site, but keep
Let me
on
finish,
going.
yeah. Yep. At a designated township-owned site, a fee in lieu of planting may be allowed to be calculated based on the current market costs per caliper inches. B, 5B, the replacement of trees, whether planted on or off site, is preferred rather than the payment of a fee in lieu of planting. Payments in lieu of planting shall only be allowed if the applicant can prove to the township's satisfaction that the replacement plantings are not feasible. So the only additional point I'll make for the record is that to me indicates the township's preference for on-site planting versus payment and fee, whereas the language.
Well, no, not just on site. On site or off site is preferred. So what he just said is true. Under the new ordinance.
Correct. So under the new ordinance, whereas the old ordinance, I submit to the board, is a little different because that other indication and preference was not specifically spelled out.
The preference wasn't spelled out, but in my opinion, both ordinances gave the board the option of one or the other. So again, if, in my opinion, under both ordinances, you don't even have to consider the preference of the second ordinance. You can say under the first ordinance, the old ordinance, or the new ordinance, even though it's my opinion the new one applies, assuming it doesn't apply, assuming the old one applies, the language is the same, in my opinion, that the board has the option of either letting them make payments in lieu or requiring that they deny the exception and require them to plant them off-site. And that's your.
That was my recommendation.
Yeah, so why don't you straw poll yourselves? And you don't even have to get into the dollar amount.
I want the trees.
You want the trees off-site, all of them,
Yep. Planted.
planted,
Want the trees.
planted, planted,
I mean, planted.
planted,
Same.
planted, planted.
Jim, trees or?
Trees or
Planted.
money? Planted.
Tree.
Okay,
So that makes it easy.
thank you, Jim.
What the board's gonna say is, they're not interested in
In your
having
money.
any money, any fee in lieu of payment. So they want they don't want a payment in lieu, they want it all off-site, so you're gonna have to redo the chart. So why don't we take another 5-minute recess? Have them redo the chart?
We don't need to redo the chart.
Yeah, I
The
don't
chart
think
on the plan is, the chart that's on the plan would be,
No, but it says off-site replacement.
well, but on the chart on the plan has the caliper inches of trees to be off-site / fee in lieu, and it just, for yours, it would just.
Okay, all right, so the board will.
You could ignore the exhibit was the exhibit for purposes of discussion. This
Yeah.
is what the board has indicated. The only thing I would ask if we're going to take a break or if the board is.
No, you don't need a break now.
Timing. Of planting, completion of planting, because the next issue is going to end up being, should the board act favorably on the application? We obviously have resolution compliance, resolution itself. And I still have some other things I'd like to go through with the board on the letters from the professionals, but to the extent that things can continue, including we have a pending stop work order, we have building and zoning permits that we would love to have reviewed with the understanding, the pure understanding that there is no occupancy, no TCO, no CO, nothing that can ever be done by way of occupancy of this building unless every T is crossed, every I is dotted, every board professional has signed off on it, and that is purely within my client's control. If that takes them a year and a half, if that takes them 4 years, if that takes them 6 months. But granted, due to actions that have occurred up until this point, we've been delayed. And we're just trying to recoup as much of that delay as we possibly can, knowing that we have things to satisfy of the professionals and of this board. And again, that are purely within our control, done at our own risk to the extent that we can, but
So are you saying that you don't think you can finish tonight, or you think you can finish tonight? And if we were to approve this, you want to continue to move forward before the resolution is?
correct. That's what I would love.
Okay.
But I'd like to keep going so we could finish up this, but I just.
Wasn't it, it wasn't about finishing tonight.
Yes, correct.
I think we very much,
Like to do that.
and I think
Yeah.
everybody
What I-
else does too, so.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that we're going to have to come up with timing for satisfaction of resolution compliance conditions. And one of the conditions is clearly going to be replanting of all of these trees off-site, which is going to take a
Right,
great.
right.
deal of
And
time.
that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, we just have to put a schedule together.
Correct. So
Yeah.
in addition to that, I'm just kind of throwing out there
Mhm.
that we would.
And
like
we could
some
put it
consideration in
something
some
that
other
says
aspects
John
as well.
Thomas will meet with the arborist and determine the best time to plant that many trees and,
Yeah, I mean,
Put a
the
schedule together.
the short answer is the tree work that is being discussed should commence in the spring and the planting should happen in the fall of 2025.
Okay.
That's the short answer, and we can work out the detail.
Mr. Griff, I missed that. What is she asking for?
Well, she should wait until she
I was gonna
finishes,
say,
okay? You jumped the gun. a
I
little.
did.
Well, I'm confused now considering the history of.
yeah, she's asked,
I
Yeah,
understand, but apparently what they're gonna ask for is trust them, they'll take care of it. They don't want anything.
Which didn't happen the
They don't
first
want
time.
anything held up anymore. That's what
Okay,
she's-
let's
that's what
continue.
she's saying.
Let's finish.
yeah, let's finish.
So just to clarify, so the offsite planning, you would say would be a fall 2025?
No, he's saying in the spring,
All of the tree planting, all reforestation tree planting should be fall of 2025.
Yeah.
If they want to plant some of the ornamental trees, the landscaping trees, that can happen this spring.
Okay.
And then any of the tree work we're talking about commencing the tree work, for the tree remediation work, that should happen the sooner the better, this spring. So that's,
all reforestation tree planting, fall 2025, all tree remediation planting work, all tree remediation work, spring 2025.
spring 2025.
Okay,
One way that you can ask for them to post a performance bond, normally you wouldn't be able to under the new law, but because this is remediation and restoration, in my opinion, I think we could make them post to ensure the tree planting.
okay. We ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, unless the board has any other questions of Chris, I'd just like to go through each one of the letters. We could start with Rakesh's updated letter of engineering review number 2, dated February 14th. Just starting on page 2, zoning.
This, to make this go smoothly, if you agree that whatever they write here can be a condition of approval, don't say anything. It becomes a condition. If there's something that you don't agree should be a condition, or you need to clarify something, or they ask for testimony on something, then address it.
Okay. So the first one here would be 7. Chris has indicated that there is no
Right,
additional relief.
we've crossed
required.
that one out.
8, we've already dealt with the landscape architect. We can, to the extent we need to address other comments in this letter, we will do that. With regard to 9, soil test number 109 was an off-site test.
I think I could just really quickly just make it quicker for everybody.
Yeah, this would be really
Yeah,
good.
the soil test all encompassing was to look at the condition of the topsoil on site and to look at the compaction for the tree remediation. Instead of dealing with trying to argue about how we feel about certain results that came back, we're just going to say everything that was discussed tonight between John and Mr. Pearson, that will be what will be done for the tree remediation. So the compaction testing is basically null and void at this point. We don't need to look at it anymore. The lands, the topsoil.
And I just want to make something clear. It's not that you regret having it done. What they
No.
did was not what you wanted done.
Some of it, yeah, there was a little bit of more information we would have loved to have had. I won't get into semantics of it. So
Right.
we're just going to say what was agreed tonight, I'm comfortable with as far as what the compaction is, and John is comfortable with as far as the tree remediation.
So put it this way, that means item 9 in your report, I can just make a check, meaning it's not a condition, be
Yes.
satisfied.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then one other quick thing about it, there was some issue with the amount of gravel content in the topsoil. Again, that's a construction issue, not necessarily as a part of this. That'll just get taken care of. We're recommending they have to remediate it, but that would be a normal process anyway during the construction period. So it was more for informational purposes. It's not, it doesn't need to be a
Now, the
condition.
last sentence of number 9, any approval granted by the board should be conditioned on approval of these items by our office and the landscape architect. This is now,
We don't need it.
we don't need it anymore. Okay,
Okay, 10, we had testimony with regard to the conservation easement. That information will be provided, so we will agree with that.
all right, that'll be a condition.
Yep. 13, Chris can give testimony with regard to what was done with regard to the self-reporting.
So the easy testimony is.
Yeah, let's hear about that. Yep.
Self-reporting was done. I called in to the DEP hotline and called in the violation. I spoke.
Can you,
Explain the two
you're
options.
talking too softly and you're mumbling.
I'm sorry.
Explain the two options for reporting, because I think that's very important for the board.
So there's basically 2 reporting options. One is they have a phone number you can call into to the call center. It's more predominantly for spills. The other is they came out with an app. And it is horrible. I figured I'd try the app. But, you know, when you say what was discharged, your options are oil, sludge, like, you know, not that soil was placed within a transition area.
So we can't send an email or a letter
Right.
and get something back. So your option was to make a phone
So I
call.
made the phone call. That phone call was made. It was logged in by the system. The land use enforcement group called me this morning. I spoke with Colleen. She's pronounced her name. I'm not going to try.
We stop at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, no, I know. And so I forwarded some additional information to her based upon that conversation, and she had emailed back confirming that they had received it and gave me the incident number that they had logged it under, and that email was forwarded to Taylor today and the board's professionals to give them notice. And then obviously any further conversations that we have with the state and any requirements that they have, we will keep the board's professionals in the loop as it relates to that.
Okay, so Ryan, you saw that email?
Yeah, for the record, it was today at 1:07.
Okay, so this doesn't have to be a condition. They've done it. I'm just check it off.
You want to mark that email as A4?
You know what? Yes, good idea. You have an email for me to mark?
I already have it in the board application folder.
Okay, this is it, okay? Let me mark this as A4. Just for the record, this is an email to Chris Nusser dated February 20th, 2025. No, this is from Chris Nusser to Taylor, and this has the whole email chain with the underlying email from Colleen Casaza, dated February 20th, 2025 at 12:27 PM. Got it.
Thank you. All right, next is stormwater management 17B, the O&M manual.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't resubmit the stormwater report as part of this, so the O&M.
Again, If this is a condition, you don't have to say anything about this.
Yeah,
I think that the issue was that it wasn't provided and needed to be revised. It's not going to be revised because there's no need to revise it, but we
Right.
will resubmit.
Sure.
Just
The
wanna
only,
make
the
that
only, yeah, the
clear.
only comment was I had the report and then it references the manual.
Right.
We just wanted one fully, here's the whole thing, just a package, that's all.
Absolutely. All right, so that, and everything else was fine. So we're good there. Just wanted to circle back on Jeff's letter. And that was Jeff's.
How about number 18?
The only thing that's outstanding is soil conservation district approval, which we will get that certification from them. I think one of the things we wanted to make sure was that there's a lot of soil remediation activities and the tree remediation that we have in here. We want to make sure that what they're approving is what you were looking for, because what you're looking for is above and above their
This
standards.
is a standard board condition.
Yeah,
We were only adjusting things that needed to be clarified.
Right.
that we weren't-
I talked to the district manager today and he knows to expect it.
Okay, so moving to Jeff's letter, and this is Jeff's letter of December 16th. I'm looking at page 2. There's items 1 through 9. 1 is done, 2 is done, 3 as-built survey submitted, 4.
Whoa,
So number 2
hold it.
Number two, you're gonna identify all the variance relief that's
We-
required.
We did.
Exhibit A1. Look at exhibit A1, which came for February 20th letter. That's it. That's why I asked you.
Oh, Jeffrey, hold on, I didn't print that out, put that in there.
I have a copy too. With the revisions.
Yes, that is correct.
Perfect, thank you. 3,
An as-built survey has been submitted showing current features on the site, okay, but after they do all the remediation, they have to do another as-built survey question.
Yep. Yes, that's required.
So this is gonna be a condition that an as-built survey shall be submitted showing features on site after completion of remediation. Yes?
Yes.
okay, 4, we got the update from soils. There's nothing new, either required or updated from the RTMUA. The
Is
EDUs
that correct?
remain.
I'm asking Jeff, is that correct?
For soils or for our TMUA?
Oh.
We haven't seen any update. It was just, this was asking for just testimony. They provided testimony about Hunter County Soil Conservation District, but so far I don't think there's been an update about our TMUA.
You have an update?
Well, the EDUs remain. The last letter that we submitted, I don't have the date of when that was, but if we need another updated letter again showing that they remain intact,
it's-
we could do that.
It's not only the EDUs, but my understanding is that there was some work being done on site regarding the RTMUA.
Is that correct?
I don't know, hold up.
Yeah, there is some ongoing compliance with RTMUA to make sure that they're satisfied.
Okay, well,
I don't know, what does that, what does that mean?
Yeah, there's work.
I don't know, my apologies. I thought you were talking EDUs.
It's a,
That's my bad.
yeah, no, I mean, it's really a construction related issue, vacuum testing. What I'm being told is vacuum testing one of the manholes to make sure that it's sealed and it was installed correctly. I mean, Jeff, if you have something else.
Yes, that's the understanding. We just need a confirmation from them,
Which is,
You now have a confirmation?
from the RTMUA.
You want a confirmation that it was, whatever they asked to be
That it
done.
passed.
successfully done.
Yes.
All right, now I understand. So the condition is what? RTMUA acknowledgement
of that issue.
that work was successfully completed. How's that?
That's okay.
Okay, now, what about the Hunterdon County Soil Conservation District?
That's the same.
We just talked about that. We
We
need to get an
discussed that
updated certification.
Yeah.
That one's gonna be.
Yes. Yeah, that was already on.
Along with
The
any other
engineer side.
outside
Hold
agencies,
on, let me just make sure that.
under 15. It was there, under
That's it,
15.
you're right, okay.
Okay, conservation easement we dealt with.
And Jeff, just to confirm, Jeff, the limits of where we extended the conservation easement to, you're good with that?
Yes.
So hold on, this one. So the conservation easement is shown on the plans, correct? Correct?
Yes,
But don't they have to also?
We still need to
We're
find
gonna
it,
give you
yeah.
a
or
copy.
for the, and provide a sign
That's-
detail on the plan and sign locations and everything that's
On the
required.
engineer's report.
Yeah, we gotta change this.
Okay. Item 6. So Item
Landscaping.
6 is not gonna be changed.
There's one more.
Well, it is true. Says landscape review was discussed in detail during the initial hearing with respect to a waiver. More than 55% of the board was not amenable to accept.
John, you got to talk to Mike.
Look at number 6.
I think
Number
we've
6.
addressed that, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
Let's
that's,
address that.
I'm just saying, because when I watch the video, it's hard to hear you at
Okay,
times.
so number 6 was the fact that the board was not amenable to accept the fee in lieu of planting. And you guys just affirmed that and made that crystal clear, and we did that.
Okay.
So what about item 7?
So 7, we're still requesting that C variance in the event that the township does grant either the vacation or the right-of-way easement.
What's the status of that?
We have not heard anything from the township with the exception of the fact that DOT involvement may be necessary. So to be honest, we're trying to get through this and see where this ends up, and then we'll focus our attention on that.
So what you're saying is you're seeking the variance from the board, but if the board grants the variance, it's going to be subject to, at minimum, township committee approval
Correct,
to have the sign in the right of way
correct,
and potentially NJDOT approval.
correct, for a vacation.
So hold on.
it wasn't NJD DOT for the,
Vacation.
oh, yeah, to get
Yeah,
them to
The
acquiesce
vacation,
to the
not the easement,
vacation.
yeah.
Right.
Okay. Item 8, that's the variance that you've requested.
Correct.
And item 9, okay, exhibits prior to the hearing.
And I think that covers,
Couple hours before the hearing, but it was before the hearing.
John, in John's report, were
You have to go
there-
loud
in
also.
John's report, there were some additional
Yeah, they
plan
didn't-
notes.
They didn't do John's report yet. I know that
Okay.
he did the testimony. She's going to go
Okay.
through John's
Okay.
report.
okay,
This one, I'm going to suggest you go through in detail.
so let's start. Again, this is John's report, February 20, 2025. So let's start with item 1. Item 1, I think really just outlines what the revised plans show with regard to caliper inches, on-site trees, reforestation trees, and all of that description. I do see the plans do not indicate how the off-site trees are to be provided. But I believe that based upon the discussion that we've had, and the additional sites that are going to be identified and the schedule, that will satisfy that comment, unless, John, there's something else you'd like to say.
This was really referring to. the fact that
Microphone.
There was
Well, but people, them.
Yeah, this was just referring to, the plans didn't reference what was going to be on-site and off-site, and we've resolved that. So it was referring to number 9, where that was discussed some more. So I think we're satisfied.
2 has complied, 3 has
That's compliant.
Right, okay. Anywhere they say has complied, that means I don't need to put any condition on, correct? Do not read the has complied. Go to the ones that does not have a has complied or that has
Special note.
a note. For example, 5 says has complied.
Number 7's the next one.
Seven.
Yep.
So 7 states, a note should be placed on the plan that at least 10 species of reforestation trees be provided for the on-site reforestation trees. Final plant list for on and off-site reforestation planting to be submitted to the township for approval. We don't have any issue with that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
8, 9. Currently, the plans in, okay, so let's look at this. Plans do not indicate provided. Okay,
That's,
I think that's been resolved.
yeah, that's discussing where.
That's been resolved, correct, but first, number 9.
Okay.
Okay, 10. Notes added to sheet 5, refer to sheet 20 of the original application in reference to tree replacement and basin planting. All applicable notes shall be included in this plan set. Note 1 and 2 of the tree. So is this covered with the general condition that all comments in the arborist report will make sure that those are included as notes on the plan?
Well, no, these are, the first one is, there's notes on this plan that refer to the original approval plan, and
Got it,
the idea
okay.
here is just to make
This is a
sure.
condition, because we just
Yeah.
want,
Yep.
want to get it in one package, so when we're doing inspection.
Okay. 11, sheet 9, not consistent. I think this is fine for a condition as well.
Yeah, the notes that are on sheet 9 are just the standard soil conservation district's notes about soil decompaction, so we'll just.
Just what you were saying earlier, that we need to get the two to jive and that they're not working at cross purposes.
Yep.
Right. So it's a condition.
What about the last sentence of number 11?
Right, we've talked about that twice now, that
Right,
we
so
need to do that.
I'm gonna strike that out of John's because I'm gonna have a condition that you need to get the Hunterdon County Soil Conservation District approval.
Right,
And my condition is gonna be the first 2 sentences of 11, correct?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, number 12.
I think this reiterates, yep.
It's a condition, and what we're specifically looking for is we have the 3 sites that we've already indicated. We have some more, but what has to happen before we start planting is we need to review the sites and to get a detailed plan for each one, so there's no, it's not fuzzy. It's not just this blob that I've shown on my plans. It's got to be something specific, so.
And I think honestly, that helps everybody. I think it helps you have things where you feel that they're appropriate, the town have them where they'd like them, and the applicant clear on where they go.
And the things that need to go on with, the site clearing and
Correct.
so forth. So that all has to be spelled out in these plans. So
Correct.
that would be great. Thank you.
So,
I do have one open question if we can get to it. So it's to Ryan. I think I had it in a conversation or email. Just to get it on the record, my concern was about the retaining wall after I watched the video again, how there was this retaining wall that was not put in 100 feet or so. And so my question to Ryan at that time was, not being an expert, of course, does that create structural weakness in the parking lot or something like that? So I just wanted to get it on the record, his reply to my question concerning that.
So the retaining wall that was missing was along the southern portion of the property, and the whole purpose of the retaining wall was to limit the amount of disturbance. It was to have an access road to get to the basin, and the idea of the retaining wall was we would put the wall in and then not have to grade out into areas and create more disturbance. The fact that that wall is not there does not do anything structurally to the parking lot. It just expanded limits of disturbance, which is the whole reason we're here tonight. So there shouldn't be any issues with the parking lot or its structural integrity because of the missing wall.
And just to confirm, it also does not change anything with the stormwater.
Correct. As submitted by Mr. Nusser, the new stormwater report still indicates that they're meeting all the state requirements.
Thank you very much.
So,
at the point to please address the variances and the exceptions that are needed. Have them listed, so can someone explain to the board why they should grant variance to allow the construction of proposed monument sign 5 feet from the right? Start again. So at this point, unless any board members have any further questions of any of the witnesses, I think some applicant's witness should address the relief they seek.
Yeah, and so we discussed this.
I just want to make sure he's been qualified as both an engineer and a planner.
Hold on, let me
Make sure I've
check.
got that.
Hold on. He's identified as an engineer or a planner. I know that you qualified him as an engineer. Just to play it safe, qualify him as a planner.
Can you please provide your qualifications to the board with regard to your planning license?
I am a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. License is in good standing. I have practiced and
Have you testified before
Testified
boards as a
before-
professional planner?
yes.
Have you
quite a
testified
number of
before
boards.
this board as a professional planner?
Certainly have.
And have you been accepted as an expert by this and other boards in the field of professional planning?
I have.
You accept him as an expert in planning?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so
So we had 3 pieces of relief, one being a design exception and 2 being the relief. The first being the monument sign. We talked about in detail last time, the monument sign.
I'm having a hard time understanding
Yeah,
you.
Chris, you
I'm
got to
sorry.
talk louder
Am I
and you got to not
not
mumble.
eating it?
Chris, can I ask a favor? Could you try using that mic? Just switch the mic. We're thinking that it's the mics. Just give it a shot. Thank you.
Better?
I think
Better
so.
or not better?
Well, better enunciation, but you're still soft. You got to yell.
All right, I'll yell, I'll yell. So three pieces of relief, 2 variances and 1 design exception. The first piece of relief was for the monument sign. We talked about this in some detail last time. The monument sign, where it's approved, you can see here, well, that's a terrible plan to choose, but we'll use it anyway. Was located inside the site at the end of what's known as Barbish Drive. It's not very visible. You can't, it's not helpful for wayfinding to anybody to have it that deep into the property. The request was to place the sign out on Royal Road where it could be seen and direct people appropriately into the site. So again, this was promoting the safety, the public safety, to make sure that people can efficiently get in to the site. Nobody's slamming on their brakes late trying to get in because they can't see the sign, or they're driving past it 6 times.
In other words, it's a C2 variance
It would be a
with
C2
traffic
variance.
safety.
Yes, it would be. And the relief further that the sign be placed 5 feet from the right of way of Royal Road, where 10 feet required, was again because we are in this narrow right of way where we don't have control of the neighboring properties, and the visibility of the sign would be diminished by having it further back. We needed to have it further forward so that it is visible along the street. Again, for the same reasons of promoting safety of the traveling public. The second piece of relief is permitting the tree canopy removal to 89.71%. This is, I think, in somewhat interesting one to, thinking through it earlier today. Really, are you permitting that disturbance? It's already happened, right? This disturbance has already
Right,
happened.
So put it this way, it can't be a C1, in my opinion, it can't be a C1 hardship, because there's cases that say you can't grant a C1 to correct an error.
Correct.
And you certainly can't grant a C1 to correct something that was self-created if they
Correct.
did it intentionally.
Right.
So
it would
you
be a
need some
C2.
sort of C2 argument.
Right, so it would be a C2. And
Yeah,
and
what's the
so-
C2 argument?
So the C2 argument on here is looking to the benefits outweighing the detriments. And obviously, there's been damage to the trees that was not, this board did not want to see. The efforts that have been made and the protocols that are being proposed and the conditions that go with it for this plan to, number one, it must be snow blowing outside, I guess. Is that what that is? The salting. Number one, the tree maintenance protocol, where the air spading that was discussed earlier and the multiple inspections per year and that whole process of trying to maintain the trees that are there and reverse the effects of the additional fill that was placed upon those trees, number one. Number two, a commitment to replace any of the trees within there that have been, that if they do die, a commitment to replace those trees. Number three, the substantial reforestation efforts that will be undergone both on and off site as a result of that additional disturbance. And then I think finally also the expansion of the conservation easement on the property to include these areas, to put them within the conservation easement so that ultimately, I know it's not today, it's not tomorrow, it is in some time, but as those trees grow back, that the canopy on the site would be greater than even the amount it would have been where you previously granted the relief at 76.96% because of the reforestation efforts on the property. So I think, overall, what you get from the benefit of granting the relief is all of those mitigation and restoration efforts and conservation efforts, with the negative of not granting it. I honestly don't know what it would look like if you didn't grant it, because it has been done. The negative would be that you're not going to get those efforts done, and the site would just kind of sit there and be stuck.
And are there any residential properties adjacent to this property?
Listen, I don't even go there.
Yeah.
I think it's a good argument he's made. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then
Just the last one.
the final
design
one's
waiver.
the design exception. So that was for the guardrails that were installed on the site. We talked about this a bit last time as well, were the standard galvanized rails and not the core 10 steel, which is the weathered steel brown look, which is the town's design standard. What the discussion was last time that we had about this was that these are not publicly seen, they're not out along the road. The one guardrail is right above the detention basin in the rear of the site facing inward. It's really an aesthetic, not a, it's not a safety consideration. It's really just an aesthetic consideration of what those guardrails look like. And so being within the site itself, it would be, wouldn't be visible from the traveling public. And to be honest, it may be the town's standard, but I mean, I drive around and.
Yeah, I would not
the
make that argument. I
guardrails.
would not make that argument. The
It's-
township has a standard. You said it. It's an aesthetic standard.
It's an aesthetic standard.
Yeah.
And there's no aesthetic detriment to the public because it's inward facing.
Yeah, don't attack the standard, but right. Use the standard to your advantage.
Okay.
And then if the board grants those two variances and the exception, with the imposition of all these conditions, I assume it's your opinion that the amended site plan would comply with all other zoning ordinance provisions which haven't been granted variances previously or this evening, and all site plan ordinance requirements that haven't been granted exceptions previously or this evening, and therefore the board should grant preliminary and final site plan approval subject to all the conditions. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Couldn't have said it better himself.
That's the case.
I just have one question about the proposed sign.
Oh, you're not asking anything, so you get the microphone.
So the proposed sign that is 5 feet from the right of way, visibility, there's not going to be any additional clearing proposed. based
No,
on
no, no.
visibility.
The reason for this would be so that there would be no need to contact, the DOT if you could get them on the phone about clearing on their land to have visibility. The idea is to have it forward so that it's visible without having any obstructions from the existing vegetation.
Okay, thank you.
Sharon, you're gonna,
My suggestion is first to note for the record, the only people in the public are here with the applicant. There's no other members of the public here. And then it's my suggestion that before they make any request outside the application, that the board deliberate and vote on the application. Then if you have any requests to make them. If you want to make them now, you can, but if you want to get a nice vote before you make the requests, that's what I suggest you do.
and you're not gonna make a closing argument.
Yeah,
We're
you're
done.
gonna, I assume you're gonna waive your closing argument.
Unless there's something
No.
that the board feels they have not heard, I'll waive closing argument.
Okay, we're gonna close for deliberation. Anybody want to go first?
I'll go.
Thank you.
So I'm in favor of this application. I just want to make a couple of comments. One is as far as the monument sign issue, I think that's the right thing to do for the safety reasons, as it was mentioned, without elaborating. Very, very, very disappointed about the second one, where, as we said, error was made. And it's unfortunate. However, you're correct in your argument that if it's left the way it is, it's worse than
Right.
where we're going. And quite frankly, I was very happy with Chris, the way you explained everything. I could see that there was a lot of honesty there. And I believe that we do have a good plan of remediation. Okay, so thank you for what you went through, and it was very hard, but I appreciate that. Okay.
I'll follow that up. I echo everything that Razul said. I hope the applicant understands the work that they had to do to correct a lot of the stuff that happened here. And I say that with all due respect, because I do like what the plan is with all the conditions, but you kind of put these guys in a bad spot with respect to what happened. I wasn't here on the first day, but I did watch the video. So I thought you guys did a really good job of saving a potential really bad situation, because it does make us, it puts us in a bad spot when things like that happen, because other applicants are going to say, hey, well, if we do this and we mess up, we can just do what, Pioneer did. And I'm not saying, again, I don't think there was ill motives there, but I will tell you that it puts us in a bad spot. I think you guys saved this very nicely. So you guys deserve a very round of applause for what you did, because you explained it well. You worked with these guys. And I think what you were able to do really put it all in perspective for us. I was glad to hear about the sign, to be honest, because I went by the place today, and I know it's locked up, but the sign is definitely needed out front. So I'm in favor.
Anyone else want to go?
Yeah, I'm going to be in favor just because we need to get this site remediated, But I think the conditions need to be clear and concise, and I encourage the applicant to take every opportunity for full compliance within the timetables that are provided.
I would agree with what Donna said wholeheartedly. I feel I'm being dragged through this. Not happy. I don't know if it's going to be complied with. We had a resolution and walked out the door, and this is what happened. I don't know how we recover. I'm not even sure what to say. I just, I manage projects all the time. And if things go off the rails, you have daily meetings. And that's what you do in IT. And I'm almost to the point of saying, well, we should have oversight. And I know that's not going to make anybody happy. The applicant's going to be really annoyed. The board professionals are probably giving me daggers right now saying, daily meetings, what are you nuts? But I don't know how to believe. I'm just hopeful. I think you guys did a very good job recovering. And I think that we are where we are. Anyone else?
There.
You can talk.
Oh, okay.
You can always talk,
Oh,
even if you
that's
can't vote.
Well, you could talk into the microphone.
Why don't you talk into the microphone?
Thank you, Taylor, talking to the microphone page over there. Well, in truth, I wouldn't really be saying anything that wasn't already said. Everything that everybody said, I agree with wholeheartedly. This could have gone a lot worse, but it could have gone a lot better. And I'm glad that we're getting some resolution to it and that you're gonna make good as best you can. So as long as you stick to the plan, we'll be good. And I would vote yes if I had a vote tonight.
Loretta, I'm going to ask Jim to speak first. Okay. Jim, did you want to say anything? And he froze.
Yes, can you hear me, Cynthia?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
We can-
Okay. Basically, I think that it recovered very well from stepping on their own toes. Basically, my major concern when we look at the number of conditions we're laying on these patients, that the applicants are well informed that the variances and other approvals we give are based upon their agreement, the clients
They're
with the conditions.
compliant and
These are
agreement.
not our suggestions, these are our requirements. Who's speaking? I said acceptance, agreement, and compliance are essential for this type of thing to work. I'll vote for it. I think it's still a good project. I'm just not so sure it was managed well from the beginning. Done.
Thank you, Jim. Loretta?
Jim, I appreciate what you said, and actually my comment builds upon what you were saying. So the thing that caught my eye in the original approval was number 12, having to do with sewer capacity. And of course, I do truly hope that the tenants, you're planning to occupy the buildings, that you're able to comply with that, and there's no, that you're planning and thinking about all that now in terms of the EDUs you're going to need, and that you have, you're going to be able to meet those EDU requirements without any further trouble. To me, that's a really important thing.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve? Obviously with all the conditions.
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Chairwoman, Miss Cynthia Schaefer,
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Russell Domji,
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero. Jim?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Miss Loretta
Yes.
Katina? Miss Donna Drews? Yes.
Okay. Now,
I'm
You-
on.
yeah, now you have some requests or do you want to make?
Okay, so like, first of all, thank you. Thank you all for your time, your consideration, and your comments. We all know that this has not been a great experience, a great situation for any of us. I'm glad we are where we are. And to be honest, I feel that we're all in a better situation now, even after all of this, than maybe we were before. What I would ask is, obviously, we have the next steps in the board's approval. We have a resolution that needs to be adopted with.
Which
what I
has to be
know-
drafted first.
Yeah,
That's
correct.
going to be a monster.
Correct. With what I know and agree need to be very specific conditions, so everyone is clear as to what is required. We do not anticipate being anywhere near this situation down the road. Everything will be taken care of. But the reality of this is that we have lost a great deal of time. We have lost a great number of tenants. We are still continuing to move forward. We have the EDUs, of course, to consider, and we will make sure that we are within the allowable EDUs. But we have to make up for some lost time. There's currently a stop work order in effect. We have building permits and zoning permits that we would like to move
Yeah,
forward
so
with.
explain exactly what approvals or permits are being held up and by whom?
So you might be able to be more specific, but there are internal building permits.
So stop for a second.
Specifically,
If there was work being done that was stopped,
yes,
work was being done by virtue of permits?
correct.
So which permits were issued and which permits did they issue stop work orders on, and who issued the stop work orders?
The stop work orders was issued across the board for everything. At a certain point, we were allowed to do site work to remediate the
Right,
disturbance.
but put it this way, when applicants come before the board and they make requests, the request, the board can't tell anyone what to do, but the board in the past, and because they've done this for some of your clients also, if there's not a whole lot of conditions, or if the resolution's going to take a long time or whatever, they say, can the board ask the zoning officer to issue a zoning permit before the resolution? Because if the zoning permit's issued, then the construction permits can be issued. The problem here is zoning permits were issued, construction permits were issued, stop work orders were issued. I don't think the board, who do they ask? The zoning officer has nothing to do with it. I think this is the township attorney who's advising the construction code official, because I think those are the permits that have the stop work orders. Now, is there anything other than the stop work orders that your client needs and are being held up?
So there are also building permits for internal bathroom work that have not been
No.
processed.
Hold it.
That requires zoning permit.
Okay.
approval as well.
There's a pending zoning permit.
Okay, so hold up. So the stop work orders by the construction department are not something the board can do anything about. So you're saying you have internal construction permits, and what you're asking on those is that you're asking the board to ask the zoning officer to issue the zoning permits
For bathrooms.
for bathrooms. So give me specifics. What else do you want the zoning permits issued for? Bathrooms and what else?
That's it. So the zoning permit for the building permits for the interior bathrooms. The other zoning permits would be, we have tenants that are coming in asking for, number one, a determination that their use falls within what's been allowed originally.
This, I mean, another condition number 12, the sewer or something else?
Both. Now, the RTMUA must,
It's more of a clearance of if the use, specified use is permitted in the respective zone, not related to.
It's like a tenancy review?
It's a use review. If somebody just says that if this is permitted in the zone,
because remember, the original approval allowed for a number of different,
Is that being held up because of this?
no, well,
everything's held up.
Okay, so your first request is that the board ask the zoning officer to be able to issue a zoning permit for the interior bathrooms so that you can then apply for and obtain construction permits for the interior bathrooms, correct?
Correct.
Second request is that that the board asks the zoning officer to now process the use what? The use determinations. Right? That's the second request. The board should ask the zoning officer to process the use determinations before the resolution's adopted. Correct?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
First one, you're asking the board to ask the zoning officer to issue the zoning permit for the interior bathrooms, which is being held up. The second request is the board ask the zoning officer to process the use determinations before the resolution's adopted, right?
Correct.
Any other requests? Because again, you can ask the board to do something about the stop work orders, but in my opinion, the board can't do anything about the stop work orders, even if you wanted to. That's the township
I
attorney.
can
and the
talk to
constru-
Joe. I'll reach out to Joe when we
Yeah.
can have that conversation.
Anything else?
The only other would be, as the tenants come in, the tenants will also need to, once they get approved for this zoning
use.
review.
Then they have the RTMUA EDU thing.
Correct, which there's, that I'm looking at as separate. To the extent that the zoning officer needs to be involved, yes, I don't necessarily know how involved he needs to be.
It's required for a TCO or CO.
Correct, but we're not even there yet because the other issue is tenant fit outs that require processing of permits for fit outs to get to the CO.
So if we don't know what the use is, how can we approve a tenant fit out?
So
The cart, that these are, you're asking for everything that we would like. So not knowing how long these other things are, so I'll just say, not knowing how long these other things will take. And knowing and with the understanding that no occupancy whatsoever,
Here's the
everything
problem.
in our.
Look, I understand the request. So yeah, zoning permit to allow the interior bathroom work. Not up to me, but that to me, if I'm a board member, is an easy one. Processing the use determination is an easy one. If they let tenant fit out work start, meaning if they allow zoning permits to issue for tenant fit out work, that's a potential problem before the resolution is adopted.
Kara, I'm thinking if you have possible tenants coming in, either you just have to send an email to Jeff and I so that he can look at the usage, but that's it. He's just saying, yes, this use
Yeah.
would be permitted. That's it.
Yeah,
It's not
bec-
on a form.
because-
It's not like anything because
Because listen, here, this is what can happen. Like 25 years ago, Flemington South, we had a big thing, okay? And the township was like, okay, we're gonna let you fit out all the apartments and everything, but no COs until you record this deed restriction. And they didn't record the deed restriction. And then we battled it out in court, and they had a widows and orphans case. We have all these tenants, they're sleeping in cars. Now luckily, Judge Bernard ruled in our favor. I handled it for the township. Okay, but I can see if all of the tenant fits out the
John,
place.
just to clarify, I wasn't asking for the permits to be issued. What we would just like to do is have everything ready to go.
So this is just, I know that we've been we've had discussions with Mr. Sardillo and it would just request the same, you've had similar requests with.
So let's use an example. Maybe that's the easiest way to do it. So we've got a tenant that's coming in. The tenant submits an email saying, here's how we want to use the property. Jeff writes back and says, yep, that falls within. We go to the RTMUA.
Yep.
RTMUA says, yep, you need 3 EDUs. That's fine. That falls within. We're great.
Okay.
Now, the tenant has their plans. They want to submit for building permits
no.
to,
Right.
okay,
No.
so
So look, you can ask them, but our advice on that
not
is,
issuance, processing, so that when everything
No.
is squared
Yeah.
away.
the problem is, once you submit it,
No,
that statutory period starts to run.
no.
So I would say on that one, wait till the resolution's adopted in the normal course. I would grant her the first 2 requests to authorize, to ask Jeff as a zoning officer to issue the zoning permits for those interior bathrooms. And my recommendation is for the board to ask Jeff to process the use determinations, but then wait in the normal course for the resolution to be adopted and resolution compliance for the other stuff. And maybe if after the resolution is adopted, you're very close to resolution compliance now because you basically made the vast majority of changes on these plans anyway. And then to go the normal course from there. That's my recommendation.
And just to be clear, zoning approval is required before any building or construction permit. That's
Completely understood.
Right.
Again, it was really just a matter of to have every duck in a row so that once that last thing is done, the horses are ready to get out of the gate. That was really just the attempt that we were trying to get to. That's what we're trying to get.
How long is the process?
So I get it.
Jeff, let her talk, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey, but I'm the one who does all the processing of the permits. I understand where you guys are going with it. But that process for a tenant to go in is us, the fire marshal's office, and then construction. You guys would be perfectly fine just getting the use done, but you have to get that specific form filled out, and then you have to do the other aspects with the fire marshal's office. Then it goes to construction. I do not want it going here, there, everywhere else, and then, oh, wait. Okay, now they're done. I understand you guys have lost a lot of time, but each department is so understaffed. We're going to do our best to help you guys get along with it, but you're looking at the zoning department right now. I can't do anything more, and I'm trying my best to let you guys do a lot more and based on what Jeff can do, but we can only do so much. Okay, we're gonna do our best to get all these tenants to come in, and I'll be sure that Jeff can see each request that comes in. That's all I'm going to say.
So you're basically hearing if the board even asked her, you got your answer.
Because
Okay, so
You're gonna create
again,
chaos by trying to do
this is
work
no
around.
motion or anything, but does anyone object to asking Jeff to do the first two requests? Okay. No problem? No problem. Okay.
And at any time, just so I'm clear, and this is probably more of a question for you. If at any time a tenant had plans and just kind of wanted to get some feedback from the construction department, the building department, they could go sit with them and say, hey, does this look right? Am I meeting all the code requirements? They could always do that. Right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's.
I can't speak on their
My
behalf, but
understanding
yeah.
is that They
Okay.
usually work along with
Okay.
any
Okay.
plans, but it's just more of having us on the same page and
Yeah.
no plans are going to them and not coming to us, and everything must be consistent.
Understood. The only last question I have is resolution compliance as far as plantings go. Do we have?
He said, John said, he gave you.
Oh, you did, you did.
It's
I'm
gonna be in the
sorry, it's
resolution.
late. I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. You did.
Okay, we good?
You did. I think so, yes.
I would recommend that the board members not throw out any of this. Not that I mean, really, I'm keeping it. Hopefully, we won't have to use it again. Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Anybody staying?
I'm sorry.